In modern warfare, when a military force levels a city block, they usually reach for the same justification to explain a high civilian death toll. The enemy was hiding behind them. In the middle of Tel Aviv, just steps away from museums and cafes, sits the headquarters of the Israeli military, the Curia. This massive military command center is not on a remote edge of the state. It is intentionally embedded within its most populated residential and cultural center. On the ground in the occupied territories, soldiers utilize a tactic known as the Mosquito Protocol. Palestinian civilians are forced at gunpoint to lead soldiers into potentially booby-trapped buildings, clearing the way by putting their own lives at risk. This tactical use of civilian bodies on the front lines reflects a broader, global strategy. For many whistleblowers and activists, the Mosquito Protocol is a microcosm of how the state manages its relationship with the Jewish diaspora. By making the state and the Jewish people indistinguishable in the eyes of the world, Zionism forces Jews worldwide to absorb the blowback for state-sanctioned violence. In this framework, the diaspora serves as the state's primary geopolitical human shield. The strength of this shield relies on a specific logical fallacy, the deliberate conflation of the State of Israel with the religion of Judaism itself. When an ethno-state claims to represent the identity of every Jewish person on earth, it ensures that every military strike and every human rights violation becomes an act performed in their name. Organizations like the Anti-Defamation League reinforce this by acting as the primary arbiters of anti-Semitism metrics in the United States. This chart reflects the ADL's published data. Following October 7th, they reported a vertical spike in anti-Semitic hate crimes, creating a global narrative of unprecedented danger for the diaspora. A closer look at the raw data shows a different picture. Over 50% of the recorded incidents in this spike were not acts of bigotry or violence. They were peaceful pro-Palestine rallies. This categorization changes the entire meaning of the data. By inflating the perception of danger and pinning Jewish safety to a colonial military project, the state maintains a diaspora that feels too afraid to ever break ranks. To maintain this human shield, Zionism had to systematically overwrite every alternative way of being Jewish. Before 1948, the dominant political force for European Jews was the Jewish Bund. These were working-class laborers who championed multiculturalism and built their lives where they lived, firmly rejecting the idea that they needed a separate militarized state to be safe. Their vision of integration stood in direct opposition to Theodor Herzl's political Zionism. Herzl's ideology was built on the cynical belief that anti-Semitism was an insurmountable force, leading him to seek land for colonization through deals with the world's most powerful autocrats. Institutions like the Jewish National Fund physicalized this new narrative. The iconic blue donation tin became a fixture in Jewish homes worldwide, training the diaspora to see their local homelands as temporary and the securement of territory in Palestine as their only true purpose. This process successfully convinced generations of Jews that thousands of years of diverse diaspora history were nothing more than a long waiting period for a nationalist state. This demand for total loyalty means that the loudest attacks on Jewish people today often come from Zionist institutions themselves, targeting any Jewish critic who dares to oppose the state's actions. There is a dark logic at work here. Zionism requires the constant threat of global anti-Semitism to justify its own militarization and continued existence. To maintain its grip on power, Israeli leadership readily forms alliances with known right-wing anti-Semites, provided those figures support the silencing of pro-Palestinian activism. This explains the state's warm relationship with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, a leader who routinely uses xenophobic tropes to bolster his own power. It is why they embrace tech billionaires who provide a massive global platform for neo-Nazi rhetoric online. An ideology that needs Jewish peril to maintain its power, and partners with bigots to crush dissent, acts as an engine for the very anti-Semitism it claims to protect against. Zionism thrives by weaponizing intergenerational trauma, demanding that the Jewish diaspora remain in a permanent state of fight or flight. But today, a global movement of students, activists, and rabbis is actively unlearning this programmed fear. They are stepping away from the defensive line and refusing to be used as cover for military atrocities. These activists view anti-Zionism as a process of reclaiming their authentic Jewish identity from a modern political project. They operate on a foundational belief. True safety cannot be extracted from an ethno-state built on the subjugation of Palestinians. True safety comes from dismantling the ideological human shield, rejecting the politics of fear, and standing in international solidarity for the liberation of all people.